The year is 1767 and you are living in Copenhagen, Denmark. Your home is a modest two-room tenement dwelling, but it is cozy and filled with the warmth of family and friends. Let us pull up a chair by the fire and get to know your neighbors. Welcome to my channel. Today, we are exploring an 18th century Danish home. Please subscribe to join me every week for videos about domestic life in the past. The focal point of your neighbor's home is this fine brick hearth set into the floor. In the days before central heating, the fireplace served as the heart of the home, both literally and figuratively. It radiated warmth throughout the room and provided a gathering spot for family members and guests. This particular hearth is small, appropriate for a two-room home where space was at a premium. In larger homes, one might find hearths in every room, each centered on the chimney breast that ran up the center of the home and poked out through the roof. Some wealthy homes even boasted gilded mirrors over their fireplaces. Although they were generally considered frivolous and wasteful, these mirrors, like the one here, had to be imported from abroad and were very expensive. In fact, the cost of importing and maintaining a mirror was so great that many would be rented by the hour or the day rather than purchased outright. Hearth furniture varied according to the social standing of the owner. The wealthier families could afford ornate gilded overmantels that held candles or oil lamps, while the less well-off relied on simple wood-earned brackets to hold their simple iron fire baskets. No matter the style, all these hearths were built-in. You could not move them round as you please. They were part of the structure of the home and remained permanently in place. In front of the hearth, you will find a number of implements used to tend the fire. At its base sits a fire shovel used to push the ashes and embers about. Above it hangs a crane, which has a long hook that can lift heavy pots and kettles from the fire. A bellows hangs beside it, either made of leather or woven rush, used to force air into the fire. Nearby, a pail of water sits ready to extinguish the flames when they become too much of a hazard. And finally, on the hearth itself, you will find a fire poker used to poke and stir the logs. As the evening progresses, our neighbor stokes her fire with logs she gathered that morning. Wood was an expensive commodity and had to be carefully hoarded for use during the winter months. In a typical year, a poor family like this one might burn through a full cartload of wood just staying warm. If you visit during the summer, there may not be a fire at all. Instead, the family will have spread a blanket over the hearth to catch rainwater, creating a makeshift greenhouse for starting seedlings. Now that the fire is roaring merrily, let us turn our attention to the rest of the room. Along one wall stands a large wardrobe with shelves above, offering storage space for clothing and household goods. Next to it, a heavy table is laden with food and dishes. On top of the table is a centerpiece, perhaps fresh flowers picked that morning or a sculpture of fruit and vegetables. Beside it, a bottle of beer or cider, likely brewed in the home, stands ready for serving. The walls are covered with shelves holding everything from pewter dishes to dried herbs. In the corner, a simple chair sits beside a spinning wheel. Its cushion has seen better days, but it is comfortable nonetheless. On the other side of the room, a woman is mending clothes near a small desk where a man writes letters. He dips his quill into an ink bottle and seals the letter with wax. The family takes care to save wax scraps so that they may use them later. To light his candle, he uses a flint and steel, then cuts a slice of bread for his dog. His wife has finished sewing and now pulls a chair up to the table to eat. Their young son enters the room and sits at his mother's feet as she eats. When he is finished playing, she will tuck him into bed while his father reads by the light of the hearth. As the sun begins to set, the family gathers closer to the fire. Now that the days are growing shorter, darkness falls earlier and earlier. Once the sky is dark, the family will use candles and oil lamps to light their home. Most of the lighting is done with candles made of tallow or beeswax. Oil lamps are more expensive due to the cost of the oil, but they give off more light. All candles and oil lamps must be carefully contained in candle clocks or sconce brackets to prevent fires. It is time for supper. The family gathers round the table and gives thanks for their food. They eat a simple meal of porridge, rye bread and cheese. Perhaps some fish or eggs if they are feeling extravagant. After the meal, they clear the table and prepare for bed. The father folds up the table to make more room in the small house. The children help clear away the dishes while the mother lights a small lamp to chase away the darkness. As night falls, the family huddles together in the corner. The little boy is tucked between his parents, and the three of them read books by the firelight. Their daughter has already gone to bed, and her little dog curls up beside her to keep her company. Now that the room is dark, the family breaks out the board games and plays by the light of a few candles. The little boy has fallen asleep, so his parents tuck him into his trundle bed. Then, they continue playing until exhaustion overtakes them, and it is easy to go to sleep. Their little house may be small, but it is filled with love and laughter. Each room filled with family and friends, warmed by the glow of the hearth. What could be cozier? Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this peek into an 18th century Danish home. Next week we will be exploring an Italian kitchen, and after that, an English garden. If you would like to learn more about historical domestic life, please subscribe. Until then, remember, history is full of fascinating people, places and things just waiting to be discovered. In the heart of Denmark's Zealand region lies a hidden gem, a museum that doesn't just preserve history, but brings it to life. Imagine stepping into a time capsule, not through dusty old books, but through a sensory experience. That's what awaits you at the Sphonic Museum. This isn't your typical museum with hushed voices and off-limit relics. Here, you're invited to touch, feel, and even smell the past. The star of the show is a meticulously crafted 18th century farmhouse, complete with gardens that transport you back in time. But it's not just about the aesthetics. It's about understanding how people lived, cooked, and yes, even their bedrooms. Welcome to my channel, where we unravel the secrets of history's most intriguing homes. Today, we're venturing into the cozy chaos of an 18th century Danish kitchen. Join us as we separate historical fact from the fiction of period dramas, all based on actual events. Sit back and relax because we're about to embark on a time-traveling adventure. So buckle up and let's get started. Our journey begins in the 1700s, a time when Denmark was ruled by King Frederick IV. Now, if you think our current royalty is dramatic, spare a thought for those who lived under Frederick's rule. He might have been called the Sun King, but he ruled like a proper monarch. No sharing power here. Frederick's grip on Denmark was tight. And if you dared question him, well, let's just say you wouldn't end up on his Christmas card list. Talk about a royal pain in the neck. But let's shift our focus to a humble cottage nestled in the scenic Zealand region, far from the palace intrigues. Here, a hard-working couple, Jens and Ane, were preparing for bed. Now, forget your silk and satin sheets. We're talking pure wool. This wasn't just for comfort. You see, linen and cotton were reserved for the wealthy. For folks like Ane, wool was a practical and affordable choice. Plus, it kept her cozy during those chilly Zealand nights. Just imagine snuggling up in a hand-spun wool blanket after a long day. Sounds heavenly, doesn't it? But there's more to these blankets than meets the eye. Each stitch whispered stories of bygone eras, much like the antiques you find at flea markets. The spinning wheel becomes a time machine, transporting us to a world where every thread had a purpose. As we run our fingers over these hand-loomed textiles, we're not just feeling the texture, we're embracing the legacy of generations past. Picture this. You're strolling through a bustling market, the air filled with fresh produce and lively chatter. In the heart of this vibrant scene stands a stall piled high with an array of colorful yarns, each with its unique tale to tell. The merchant, a seasoned storyteller, knows every skein like an old friend, ready to share its history with anyone who stops by. As you examine each bundle of threads, you realize that each color has its own charm. Soft blues reminiscent of a clear summer sky, warm reds that evoke the glow of a crackling hearth, delicate pinks that whisper of blooming flowers in spring, and soothing greens that bring to mind lush meadows and whispering trees. These aren't just dyes, they're memories frozen in time. Some come from humble plants like woad for a blue or meadowroot for red. Others travel from distant lands brought back by daring sailors and traders. Each skein holds within it the essence of days gone by, waiting to be unraveled and cherished. Choosing the perfect yarn becomes an art form. You select a vibrant mix, eager to create something that reflects the beauty and diversity of life itself. With each stitch, you weave together the stories contained in the yarn, honoring the traditions of those who came before while infusing your own creativity into the fabric. As you work, you can almost hear the echoes of laughter and conversation from the bustling marketplace. Feel the warmth of the hearth on a cold winter-esque night and witness the blooms of spring bursting forth in a riot of colors. The yarn becomes more than just a craft. It's a connection to the past, a celebration of nature's hues and a testament to the enduring spirit of human creativity. As I delve deeper into the world of 18th century Danish homes, I'm struck by how every day objects like chairs can reveal so much about a bygone era. Take a closer look at this sturdy wooden chair. At first glance, it might seem like any ordinary piece of furniture, but it's in the details where the magic lies. The simple yet robust design speaks volumes about the lives of those who once sat in it. Imagine yourself sitting in this very chair, feeling the smooth yet slightly worn surface beneath you. You can almost hear the soft creaking of the wood as if it is sharing stories of countless conversations and quiet moments that unfolded within these four walls. Every curve and contour tells a tale of hands that once gripped the sturdy arms, perhaps sharing laughter, news of the day, or simply enjoying the warmth of companionship. The chair stands as a silent observer, having witnessed generations of family gatherings, quiet evenings, and maybe even a few tears shed in times of sorrow. But it's not just about the chair as an object. It's about what it represents. It embodies the resilience and resourcefulness of a bygone era when furniture was crafted to last, when each piece told a story, and when simple objects became cherished companions in daily life. As we continue our journey through the Sonic Museum, keep an eye out for more hidden gems. Each item, no matter how small, holds a piece of history waiting to be uncovered. Don't forget, you can find more details in the description below. Dive deeper and let the stories of the past unfold before your eyes. Who knows, you might just find a piece of history that resonates with you, reminding you of the enduring spirit of those who came before us. Now, let's shift our attention to the heart of the home, the place where meals were shared, stories were told, and lives were sustained, the kitchen. Stepping into the 18th century Danish kitchen is like entering a time warp. Imagine the aroma of freshly baked bread mingling with the scent of herbs and spices. creating a symphony of smells that transports you back in time. The kitchen, with its dirt floor and humble furnishings, was the hub of domestic life. Here, the rhythm of daily life unfolded. Here the gentle clatter of pots and pans hanging from hooks overhead, each one a silent witness to countless meals prepared. Below them, on the rough-hewn table, lay the tools of the trade, knives, forks, and spoons, each with its specific task. Simple earthenware and pewter dishes were laid out, ready to be filled with hearty fare. The walls were adorned with shelves holding jars filled with dried herbs and spices, each adding its unique flavor to the culinary creations. And then there were the treasures, items that held special significance for the family, passed down through generations or brought back from afar, each telling a story of its own. Perhaps a seashell collected by a sailor, a reminder of adventures on the open ocean, or an intricately carved wooden bowl, a symbol of craftsmanship and tradition. These weren't just objects, they were threads in the tapestry of life, weaving together the stories of family, community, and the world beyond. In the center of it all was the hearth, a constant source of warmth, light, and life. Here, fires were stoked, providing not just heat, but a gathering point for family and friends. It was a place where meals were cooked, stories shared, and where the simple act of tending the fire became a ritual connecting generations. As you explore further, you might stumble upon a hidden gem, a collection of well-worn recipe books. Their pages, stained with the remnants of spilled flour and splattered sauces, hold secrets passed down through generations of cooks. From hearty stews to delectable pastries, each recipe is a portal to the past, allowing you to savor flavors that once graced these very rooms. It's not just about the food, it's about the stories embedded in every dish. As you turn the brittle pages, you can almost feel the presence of those who came before you, their laughter echoing in your ears as you read their handwritten notes and scribbled measurements. These recipe books are more than just collections of ingredients and instructions. They're culinary time capsules preserving the essence of a bygone era, offering us a tantalizing glimpse into the world of 18th century Danish cuisine. Don't forget, history is more than just dates and battles. It's the sum of our everyday experiences, our hopes, dreams, and the simple joys that made life worth living. Keep exploring, and you might just uncover a piece of yourself along the way. And if you enjoy this journey, make sure to give us a thumbs up for more exciting tales from the past. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, keep seeking those hidden gems that make history come alive. Who knows? You might just find that you're part of the story, too. What if we could just pause time? Not in a dramatic or earth-shattering way, but gently, like the sinking of the sun, leaving us with quiet moments to think and dream before sleep. Wouldn't it be nice if life had more of these moments? More moments that feel like the perfect ending to a storybook, where everything is still and safe and warm. Welcome to the series, A Cozy Journey Through 18th Century Danish Domestic Life. Where else would you rather be than here with me? We are exploring how a typical family might have spent their day in the year 1750 in Denmark. The series is inspired by a digital exhibition I created for the Museum of Danish America. So, if you want to know more about this project, please visit the website below. And if you want to support this series, please consider supporting us through the link in the description. It is getting dark earlier now, and the evenings are filled with activities until bedtime. This evening, the family has decided to light their candles. But before they do, the children help set the table for dinner. As the fire crackles in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the wall, their father tells stories from his travels while their mother lays out the food. The room is filled with the aroma of roasting goose and apples, along with the smell of freshly baked bread. It's a comforting scene, almost idyllic. But what if we were to peer closer into the details of this setting? What can we learn about everyday life in the 18th century by looking closely at these domestic scenes? That is what I would like to explore in this video, starting with the humble candle. Candles played a central role in the lighting rituals of the 18th century, especially during the winter months when darkness fell early. In pre-industrial Europe, people relied on natural light sources such as candles made from animal fats or beeswax. These candles were not only used for illumination, but also to create a cozy atmosphere and provide a sense of security in the dark. The choice of candle type often signified wealth and social status. For instance, in this image from 1752, a wax candle is depicted. Wax candles were associated with the upper classes due to their higher cost and cleaner burning properties. On the other hand, the lower classes and servants usually used cheaper alternatives like tallow candles made from animal fat. The price of candles varied depending on their size, quality, and the price of wax. For example, in 1749, a small beeswax candle could cost up to 12 rix dollars, which was a significant amount considering the average daily wage for a laborer was around 30 skills. In the painting, we can see that the candle is placed in a candlestick, which not only holds the candle but also serves as a decorative element. Candlesticks came in various designs and materials, from simple iron holders to elaborate brass or gilded. They were not just functional objects, but also symbols of wealth and taste. During the 18th century, candle snuffers were used to extinguish candles, as shown in the image. These tools helped prevent the hot wax from spilling and made an audible hissing sound as they removed the flame. Another interesting detail is the presence of a candle box or candle cupboard. This type of furniture was specifically designed to hold and store candles, often with glass doors to display them. Candle boxes were not only practical, but also served as a decorative piece in the interior. In the 18th century, candle making was a specialized craft and skilled candle makers were in demand. They would create candles using molds of different shapes and sizes, catering to the needs of various social classes. The gentle glow of the candles creates a warm ambience in the room, highlighting the beauty of the space. The play of light and shadow adds depth and texture to the interior, emphasizing the coziness of the setting. Imagine the soft light illuminating the faces of the family members gathered in the room, casting dancing shadows on the walls round them. Another source of light in the image is the oil lamp hanging from the ceiling. Oil lamps were commonly used throughout the 18th century, and they were especially popular in Denmark due to the country's association with wind and rain. They provided a reliable source of illumination when candles might fail or be too expensive. In the painting, the oil lamp is depicted with a simple shade, which was a common feature of Danish oil lamps during the period. The shades were often made from fabric or paper and were designed to protect the flame from drafts and insects. The cord used to hang the oil lamp is another interesting detail. In the 18th century, cords were typically made from hemp or linen and were used to hang various objects, including oil lamps, in different parts of the house. The image shows a close-up of the oil lamp with a detailed depiction of its components. The lamp consists of a metal base and a cylindrical glass container. The metal part was usually made from iron or brass, while the glass container held the oil and provided a clear surface for the flame to pass through. The glass was supported by a metal chimney, which helped direct and stabilize the flow of air, making the flame burn more efficiently. The entire assembly rested on a hook or nail installed in the ceiling wall. Let us take a moment to appreciate the details in the painting, starting with the wooden wall panels. These elements were typical of Danish interiors during the 18th century. The wall panels not only served as a decorative feature, but also provided insulation and helped maintain a consistent temperature inside the home. The soft, even lighting created by the candles and oil lamp casts a warm glow on the wall panels, highlighting their natural beauty and adding to the cozy atmosphere of the room. Notice how the light plays with the grain and texture of the wood, creating a sense of depth and dimension. The shadows cast by the flames dance and flicker across the wall panels, adding a touch of movement to the scene. Next, let's focus on the architectural elements of the room, such as the ceiling beams and moldings. These structural components were not only functional, but also contributed to the aesthetic appeal of the interior. The ceiling beams, often made from wood, were an essential part of the roof structure, providing support and stability. They were sometimes decorated with simple geometric patterns or motifs, adding visual interest to the ceiling. Moldings, on the other hand, were used to enhance the transition between different surfaces or elements in the room, such as the walls and ceiling. They were often crafted with delicate profiles, creating a sense of elegance and refinement. The soft lighting casts long shadows from the ceiling beams and moldings, creating a sense of drama and depth. The interplay of light and shadow adds a touch of mystery to the room, inviting the viewer to explore the space further. The hearth and fireplace are central features in the image, symbolizing warmth, comfort, and togetherness. In the 18th century, hearths were not just a source of heat, but also a gathering place for families and communities. The flickering flames danced merrily, casting enchanting shadows on the walls and ceilings. They were the focal point of the room, drawing the family members into its embrace as they shared stories, laughter, and warmth. The brickwork around the fireplace showcases the craftsmanship and artistry of the builders of the time. Each brick laid with precision, creating a durable and visually appealing structure. The bricks were often laid in a herringbone pattern or other intricate designs, adding visual interest to the hearth. The arrangement of the chairs and tables round the hearth reflects the social dynamics of the family. The adults sit close to the fire, enjoying its warmth and company, while the children are either seated nearby or playing near the hearth, creating a lively and intimate atmosphere. The hearth becomes a stage where everyday life unfolds, offering a glimpse into the joys and warmth of 18th century Danish domestic life. I hope you enjoyed our exploration of everyday life in 18th century Denmark. If you did, don't forget to show your support. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you next time in the grand halls of the Danish Rococo Palace, where golden light spilled through ornately carved windows. An intimate scene unfolded round a modest table. A woman sat nestled in a high-backed chair, her needle flushing as she brought life to a patch of linen with a floral design. Her husband, seated opposite her in a similar chair, was engrossed in a book, occasionally dipping his quill into an open letter. Their two children, a boy and a girl, were occupied in their own tasks, their small hands mimicking their mother's nimble fingers as they created their own textile masterpieces. The room, though modestly furnished, was a sanctuary of warmth and light, offering refuge from the harsh Danish winter. Windows are such an integral part of our daily lives that it can be easy to take them for granted. But have you ever stopped to think about what life would be like without them? Or even more specifically, what life would be like if you lived in 18th century Denmark without them? Well, let's find out. The year is 1755, and you are strolling through the cobblestone streets of Copenhagen when you notice the inviting glow of candlelight spilling out of an open doorway. Curiosity piqued, you step closer and peer inside. You find yourself transported to a cozy domestic scene. A couple is seated at a table with their two children. Their home is not particularly grand, but there is a certain charm to its modest furnishings, and the flickering flames dance in the depths of heavy drapes that frame the room. Despite the chill of winter seeping in through cracks in the walls, the family appears content in their humble abode. As the centuries rolled by, the function and design of windows underwent a remarkable evolution, transforming from simple openings to elaborate architectural features. During the 18th century in Denmark, windows became not just portals to the outside world, but also key elements in creating a comfortable and stylish living environment. In 18th century Denmark, windows were much smaller than what we are accustomed to today. These small panes of glass were set within substantial frames that were deeply recessed into the masonry, which served a dual purpose. Firstly, this design choice helped to keep the cold air at bay during the harsh Danish winters. Secondly, it ensured that the glass panes remained secure and prevented them from being easily dislodged. These small windows, often measuring no more than 12 by 15 inches, were designed to admit natural light into rooms while minimizing heat loss. They were typically placed above eye level, forcing the inhabitants to rely on candlelight and oil lamp illumination during the long winter nights. This arrangement not only made the best use of natural resources, but also fostered a sense of intimacy within the homes. However, despite their diminutive size, these windows played a crucial role in the lives of those who lived in 18th century Denmark. For instance, they provided a way for people to observe the world outside their homes without being seen themselves. Additionally, they offered a source of natural light, which was essential for various tasks such as sewing, reading, or writing. Moreover, windows were considered a status symbol, with wealthier households having larger and more elaborate frames and glass panes to display their prosperity. Furthermore, the placement of windows in a room could signify the status of the occupants. For example, in a grand palace, the nobility might have their bedroom situated at the front of the building with views of the street to showcase their importance. Meanwhile, servants' quarters were typically located at the back of the house with windows overlooking the garden or the courtyard. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of these small windows is their ability to reflect the world in miniature. The glass panes, set deep within their frames, acted like mirrors, offering a distorted yet captivating view of the outside world. People would gather around the windows during inclement weather to watch the swirling snow or the torrential rain, finding solace and entertainment in the spectacle before them. The windows, therefore, became a focal point of domestic life, a way to connect with nature without venturing out into the harsh elements. In the grand halls of the Danish Rococo Palace, where golden light spilled through ornately carved windows, an intimate scene unfolded round a modest table. A woman sat nestled in a high-backed chair, her needle flashing as she brought life to a patch of linen with a floral design. Her husband, seated opposite her in a similar chair, was engrossed in a book, occasionally dipping his quill into an open letter. Their two children, a boy and a girl, were occupied in their own tasks, their small hands mimicking their mother's nimble fingers as they created their own textile masterpieces. The room, though modestly furnished, was a sanctuary of warmth and light, offering refuge from the harsh Danish winter. Here in the heart of the Danish Rococo Palace, a grand spectacle unfolds before your eyes. Sunlight streams through towering windows, painting patterns of light and shadow on the richly ornamented walls. The air is filled with the gentle murmur of voices as elegantly dressed men and women engage in lively conversation, their laughter echoing through the vast hall. Crystal chandeliers hang suspended, casting their glow on intricately carved furniture and shimmering surfaces. Outside, the manicured gardens beckon with the promise of verdant landscapes and the distant shimmer of a lake. Within this opulent setting, A sense of grandeur and sophistication permeates every corner. This is the grand facade of Danish Rococo, a style that flourished in the 18th century and left an indelible mark on European art and culture. But beyond the opulence and refinement, a different reality existed. Step into a modest dwelling and discover how ordinary people coped with the challenges of everyday life in 18th century Denmark. Amidst the grandeur of the Danish Rococo era, a stark contrast emerges between the lives of the privileged few and the many who lived in relative obscurity. As you enter a typical home, you are immediately struck by the limitations of space. In these modest dwellings, every inch is utilized, with furniture and household items carefully arranged to maximize functionality. The absence of large windows means that natural light filters in sparingly, casting long shadows that add a touch of mystery to the interior. In the flickering lamplight, you see a family gathered round a small table, their faces illuminated by the warm glow as they share a simple meal. The father, a craftsman or a laborer, sits at the head of the table, his hands calloused from a day's work. The mother, with a gentle smile, serves their children, their faces alight with innocence and curiosity. The room itself tells a story of resilience and resourcefulness. Patchwork quilts adorn the beds, crafted with care to provide warmth during the long, cold winters. On the walls, simple framed prints or textiles serve as reminders of faith, family, or aspiration for a better life. And then there are the windows, small and frosted panes that frame the outside world while keeping the harsh elements at bay. Despite the challenges of limited space and meager lighting, there is a sense of community and togetherness that pervades this modest abode. For those who lived here, these small windows were not just portals to the outside world, but also symbols of hope and the promise of a new day. And speaking of windows, did you know that the small, frosted panes used in 18th century Danish homes had a unique characteristic? And like the clear glass windows we are accustomed to today, these windows featured small panes of frosted glass that diffused the light streaming through them. This diffusion not only added an ethereal quality to the interiors, but also served a practical purpose. The frosting on the glass obscured the view from the outside, providing a sense of privacy to the inhabitants of these modest homes. Furthermore, the frosting process itself was a testament to human ingenuity and resourcefulness. In an era before mass production, each pane of glass was meticulously frosted by hand, creating intricate patterns that adorned the windows. These patterns, often inspired by nature or geometric designs, transformed the mundane into art, adding a touch of beauty to otherwise ordinary window panes. The small, frosted windows became a defining feature of 18th century Danish homes, serving as both a functional necessity and a creative outlet. They symbolized the resilience, resourcefulness, and artistic sensibility of the people who lived in that era. Imagine yourself sitting by the window, wrapped in a warm woolen shawl, as you gaze out at the world. The gentle glow of candlelight bathes the room in a soft, inviting light. The scent of wood smoke from the hearth mingles with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, creating a cozy atmosphere that invites relaxation and contemplation. The rhythmic patter of raindrops on the glass creates a soothing melody, lulling you into a state of tranquility. As you watch the raindrops race down the pane, you feel a sense of peace wash over you. The rhythm of the falling rain becomes a comforting lullaby, harmonizing with the silence of your own thoughts. It is in these moments of quiet solitude that you find solace and renewal. The simple act of sitting by the window becomes a ritual, a time to reconnect with yourself and the world around you. The rain, once a symbol of dreary weather, now transforms into a source of comfort and inspiration, reminding you of the beauty that can be found in the everyday moments of life. In the heart of 18th century Denmark, where grand palaces stood in stark contrast to humble abodes, life revolved round the rhythm of the seasons. From the grand halls of the Danish Rococo palace to the modest homes of the common folk, the interplay of light and shadow cast by the small, frosted windows shaped daily life. These windows, with their intricate frostings and diminutive sizes, not only regulated the flow of natural light, but also served as portals to a world both enchanting and harsh. They witnessed the laughter of children playing in the winter sun, the hushed tones of families sharing stories in the lamplight, and the silent vigil of workers toiling by the flickering glow of candles. More than just openings in the wall, these windows were integral to the fabric of 18th century Danish life, reflecting the ingenuity, resilience, and artistic spirit of a bygone era. Just as the changing seasons painted the landscape outside, these windows framed the tapestry of life in all its beauty and fragility. What did you find most fascinating about the small, frosted windows of 18th century Denmark? What aspects of life during that era intrigued you most? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on our captivating historical tales. In today's episode, we are going to learn about the language of blankets from the 18th century in Denmark. The exhibit is part of an installation called A Cozy Journey Through 18th Century Danish Domestic Life. It was designed and curated by a team at Historic House Denmark in collaboration with an interior architect. The team wanted to create a multi-sensory experience that evoked what it might have been like to live in a wealthy urban home in 18th century Denmark. The exhibition opened in 2021 at Charlottenborg Palace and then traveled to other historic houses in Denmark. I was lucky enough to see it at the Danish American Center in New York City in September and October of 2022. I've made videos about the exhibition before, including about the food they prepare, the furniture, and the wallpapers. This is the fifth and final video about this amazing exhibit. If you haven't seen the previous videos, you can find links below. And while you're at it, please subscribe so you won't miss any future videos. You can also follow me on social media for even more about historic interiors. Now let's talk about blankets. In the exhibit, a wall separates the bedroom from the main living area of the house. Between the wall's baseboard and the wainscoting above, there are 3 painted panels, each depicting a different stage in the life of a woman. On the left, you can see a woman holding a spindle, which symbolizes her role in producing textiles in the household. In the center, a married woman is shown spinning flax while seated on a stool next to a hearth. On the right, an older woman sits in a rocking chair. She holds a spindle, suggesting that she is ready to spin yarn again, perhaps for the enjoyment of spending time alone with a productive pastime, or maybe she is making items for her grandchildren. Above the panels is a quote from a letter written by a woman in the 18th century. She says, "It is a great deal of work to make flax into linen, but one cannot do without it." In this video, we will consider how blankets tell the stories of families, their relationship to the places they live, and their dependence upon skilled craftspeople. The blankets in this room were made in the mid-19th century. They were crafted by weavers who adapted traditional folk patterns for a market of wealthy consumers. But these textiles would not have been out of place in the 18th century when they were made. Blankets, bed hangings, and counterpanes were popular ways of displaying the wealth of a household. Their prominence in rooms was heightened during the Rococo period because people didn't use curtains to block drafts. So blankets helped keep the chill out. In fact, blankets and their placement in a room could tell you a lot about its inhabitants. Where they were hung or laid out could signal a room's function. For example, a blanket draped across the top half of a window might suggest that the room was used for both sleeping and receiving guests. In the Cozy Journey exhibition, the bed is placed perpendicular to the wall, allowing visitors to walk between the bed and the wall and imagine themselves partaking in the daily activities of the house. This placement also invites us to think about the way that objects like beds, tables, and chairs might be moved around to suit the needs of a particular day. Blankets would have been made of wool, linen, cotton, or hemp. Wool was considered the most valuable material. In the 18th century, European luxury goods were imported to colonies where cash crops like sugar and tobacco were cultivated. Those colonies then sold the products back to Europe. One example is the triangular trade between Africa, the Americas, and Europe. In this trade, European merchants would arrive in West Africa with manufactured goods like blankets, which they would exchange for enslaved people. Those enslaved people would then be transported to the Americas to work on plantations. In exchange for the labor of those enslaved people, European merchants received cash crops like sugar, tobacco, and cotton, which they brought back to Europe to sell. Some of the cotton grown in North America during the 18th century came from the Sea Islands off the coast of South Carolina and Georgia. These islands were incredibly fertile, allowing for cotton plants to grow larger than those found anywhere else in the world. The cotton grown there became known as the finest in the world. This story of exchange and exploitation is another important thing to consider when thinking about a blanket's history. They may have been crafted in one place, but they often tell the stories of others. The blanket closest to the door has a traditional folk pattern called a rya. Rya were created in southern Sweden during the 1700s. The patterns were originally created to help young girls practice weaving, so they were simple to reproduce. However, later versions became increasingly complex. Eventually, whole looms were set up to produce ryas to sell to a wider market. This piece was woven on a small loom, and it was likely made to serve as a wedding gift. Today, they are often referred to as double cloth blankets because the design is woven both over and under the weft threads. This made them durable, which was perfect for gifts meant to last for generations. The technique allowed for greater precision and detail, helping weavers create some truly impressive pieces like the one behind me. The motifs that appear in the patterns were sometimes based on nature, but they could also represent abstract ideas. Here, stylized oak leaves and acorns are interspersed with the letter A and the number 8. The oak tree symbolized strength and endurance, but the meaning of the letter and number combination is harder to decipher. One suggestion is that it represents Adam and Eve, perhaps commenting on the domestic sphere's association with the biblical Eve. Another idea, that it's simply a tribute to the king. The king's monogram was the letter E. Since King Frederick V ruled Denmark from 1746 to 1766, it could be that this blanket was made to commemorate his rule. It's also possible that the letter and number signify a couple's wedding date. But in this case, it's impossible to know for sure. When we don't know the identity of an object's owner or the circumstances of its creation, we have to consider multiple potential readings of its decoration. The ambiguity allows us to appreciate the craftsmanship and contemplate the stories that objects like these can tell us about the past if we only knew who had owned them. Above the bed is a bed hanging with a more painterly design. The fabric was produced by a weaver named Christian F.L. Hansen in 1777. He worked in Copenhagen, and his specialty was creating designs inspired by Chinese wallpaper. Hansen learned the technique from an English artist and engineer who drew designs directly onto the fabric. Once the dyes were applied, The result was so striking that Copenhageners nicknamed the bed hangings chinoiseries because they resembled Chinese porcelain. Chinoiserie had become fashionable across Europe, and it appeared on everything from wallpaper to furniture and textiles. Although this bed hanging was not intended to function as a repeatable pattern, we see similar motifs in Chinese wallpaper, such as the landscape scene I showed you in my video, are but wallpapers from the 18th century. There is one more blanket in the bedroom that tells the story of the people who slept here. It is a woven coverlet with a geometric pattern of diamonds. Coverlets were usually placed on top of other bedding to protect it from soil and at warmth. But they also served as a form of display, just like the bed hanging. This coverlet was probably made in Copenhagen in the mid-19th century. The exhibition's curators chose this piece to represent the linens that might have been owned by a wealthy family living in Copenhagen in the late 1700s. Like the Christian Franz Ludwig Hansen bed hanging, this coverlet demonstrates how skilled Danish craftspeople could study foreign trends and adapt them to their own work. Here, they took inspiration from French textiles and incorporated the French motto liberté, eagle-eyed, fraternity into the weaving. This motto comes from the French Revolution, which began in 1789. The revolution led to major changes in France and across Europe, but it's unclear whether a Danish audience would have connected the coverlet's motto to the revolution. Perhaps it was included to show political and intellectual engagement with current events, or maybe it was chosen merely for its sound. Either way, the inclusion of the motto adds another layer of complexity to this already intricate piece. Let's look at the blanket on the armchair. It has a tapestry-like quality, and it is a good example of a type of weaving called kente, which originated in the Middle East. Kente is a type of tapestry weaving, unlike a plain weave, where all the threads are visible. Kente weavers hide the backing threads in the finished piece. This is done by throwing the weft thread over several backing threads at once, hiding them and creating a textured surface. In the 18th century, kente was highly valued and expensive because of the amount of skill required to produce it. Now let's return to the rocking chair. Its upholstery was made in the 19th century, but it was inspired by 18th century French styles. The fabric features a large-scale floral pattern with exotic birds perched on branches. The style of the chair tells us something about the person who would have sat in it. During the 18th century, chairs like these were often given to older women, allowing them to participate in conversations happening around them while they rock gently. This practice was encouraged because it was believed that rocking calmed the nerves and eased joint pain. The woman shown in the painting on the left might be an older woman enjoying some quiet time in a chair just like this. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning about some of the many things that blankets can tell us about the past. If you want to learn more about 18th century Danish interiors, I'll provide more resources in the video description below. Please subscribe and follow me on social media. Until next time, take care. In this series, we're taking a cozy journey through 18th century domestic life in Denmark. Join us as we virtually step back in time to explore the homes, hearths, and habits of our 18th century ancestors. We are continuing our exploration of the Danish longroom house with its central hearth and circulation patterns focused around it. In our last episode, we saw how each part of the room had its own function. There was space for cooking, eating and drinking, socializing and games, and even storage. And next to the working hearth was the space where the family would sit, either on chairs or stools or often on the floor. But who wouldn't want to curl up on the floor with a good book? Well, perhaps those who could afford chairs, tables, and desks did not have to. In this installment, we'll be looking at what might have been found in those quieter corners of the room, and explained how these spaces became more individualized during the 18th century. As always, I've provided more information in the description below, including a link to the previous episode in this series. If you enjoy these videos, please subscribe and do share for more information about the past. The 18th century saw the beginnings of what we might call the modern age. Science and industry were developing at a quick pace, and there was a growing focus on individualism. This can also be seen in the home, where people began to carve out their own spaces. We see this in the way that rooms were subdivided. In upper-class homes, whole rooms were closed off with doors so that parents and children, men and women, could retreat to their own spaces. However, this would have been less common in the middle and low classes. Instead, people would carve out their own spaces within one large room. While many of the furnishings we associate with our own personal space today, such as beds, desks, and wardrobes, were still communal, certain areas of the room could be claimed as one's own. A woman spinning yarn, for instance, might take her stool to a quiet corner away from the busy hearth. Or an older son might claim a desk in one corner as his own space in order to study. These personal spaces weren't necessarily meant for privacy, but they did allow people some time to themselves, which was important in a culture that prized politeness and good manners. Nowhere is this idea of carving out your own space within a shared room more evident than in the rise of the reading nook. These intimate alcoves might be found tucked under the stairs, all along a wall, or even built into an archway. They became popular in the 1730s and were often paneled with simple but attractive moldings. Sometimes the panels were decorated with painted scenes or gilded leafage, while at other times mirrors were used to reflect the light or to make the space appear larger. These cozy spots became associated with the Rococo style with its light colors and playful use of ornament. But simpler versions could be found in middle and low-class homes, too. Often the shelves and small tables that supported them were made of wood, while the upholstery was made of linen or cotton instead of silk or velvet. Still, the effect was the same. It was a place to retreat with a book and enjoy some peace and quiet. And what would a cozy nook be without a comfortable chair or couch? Upholstered seating began to grow in popularity during the 18th century. Before this time, chairs and stools were often made of wood and cushioned only with a simple pad. During the 18th century, however, wealthy Danes began to import English and French magazines and newspapers, which were printed on acidic paper that crumbled easily. In order to prevent these fragile sheets from being damaged, readers began to use padded armchairs with leather or linen seats. These were not only more comfortable, but also provided a soft surface upon which to rest the pages. By the end of the century, upholstered furniture was common in middle-class homes as well, although the quality of materials would have varied. Sofas and settees were often made with dowels and horsehair, while chairs and stools might have stuffing made of sawdust, moss, or even straw. But no matter what the filling, the addition of padding and upholstery made for a much more comfortable seating. Another way that people carved out their own space was by creating barriers between them and the rest of the room. For instance, screens were a popular way to block drafts during the winter months, while folding wooden room dividers were sometimes used to subdivide a space. Screens were more portable and came in a variety of designs. Some were made of wood, while others featured rushlights or mats woven between laths. Screens could be plain or they could be decorative, featuring painted scenes or even mirrors. Not only were they functional, but they were also a way to display one's good taste. But screens could also be used to create an intimate space within a larger room. They allowed a family member to claim a spot as their own while still being a part of the activity happening in the main room. For example, a couple might use a screen to create a sort of boudoir for the wife while she sews or reads, while the husband works in the room with his friends. But screens weren't the only way to create a sense of enclosure. During the early 18th century, curtains grew in popularity, and like the heavy, formal drapes used in upper-class homes, middle and lower-class curtains were more often made of linen or cotton. These lighter-weight fabrics were hung from simple cornices that were supported by brackets attached to the wall. Curtains could be used to block drafts or to obscure the windows at night, allowing people to sleep later. But they also provided some privacy and helped to define a space, even though the room remained open. As we can see in this painting by Carl Verboek, the family has created a more intimate space with their textiles, furniture, and personal objects. This sort of coziness wasn't merely aesthetic. In a world that was becoming increasingly commercialized, having a home that felt like a refuge was important. The Danish Enlightenment, which occurred during the second half of the century, contributed to this desire for a private sphere. This intellectual movement emphasized the importance of the individual and personal liberty. The philosopher Ludwig Holberg, for instance, wrote about the need for privacy in his book, The Art of Good Society. This emphasis on privacy, however, did not extend to all Danes. The poor, for instance, continued to live in overcrowded conditions, and their homes remained open to the elements. Still, the ideal of the cozy room with its comfortable seating, soft lighting, and beautiful textiles captured the imagination of many. And who doesn't love curling up with a good book in a comfy chair with a warm drink in hand? While we may not live in the 18th century, the idea of creating a cozy reading nook or quiet corner continues to appeal to us today. So why not take a few cues from our 18th century ancestors and make a space for ourselves where we can relax and enjoy some peace and quiet? Thank you for joining me on this cozy journey through 18th century Danish domestic life. Next time, we will be exploring the fascinating history of textiles. I hope you enjoyed learning more about the 18th century. I certainly learned a lot while researching this series, and I hope that you will continue to join me as we learn more about the past. Please remember to share for more information about the past. Until next time, I wish you all the best and happy history. In the heart of Denmark's bustling capital city, Copenhagen, in the year of our Lord 1767, there lived a prosperous baker named Hans Hansen. Now, mind you, this was not just any bakery we're talking about. No. Sorry, this was Hansen's very own home. Like many of his fellow Danish citizens, he baked his own bread and the finest pastries money could buy. For the 18th century was a time when trade had flourished across Europe, bringing with it exotic spices from distant lands, cinnamon from Sri Lanka, cloves from Indonesia, and nutmeg from the Banda Islands. These precious imports were not just for the king's supper, but graced the tables of many a wealthy Danish home, including that of Hans Hansen. Now, every morning as the sun peeked over the rooftops, stirring the city into life, Hans would awaken with the rising dough of his sourdough starter. This faithful friend was the heart of his baking, passed down from his grandmother to his mother and now to him. With gentle hands, he would feed it fresh flour and water, coaxing it back to life after its nightly rest. It was more than just a tool for baking. It was a living, breathing part of his family's history. After tending to his sourdough, Hans would set about his other chores, for in the 18th century, a man of means did not do all his own housework. He had servants for that, maids and a cook to help run his busy household. But baking, that was a different matter. That was a ritual reserved for the master of the house. His wife met a picture of elegance in her linen nightgown and silk stockings. would often join him in the kitchen. She might not have donned an apron, but she knew her way around the oven, having learned the art from her own mother. Together, they would knead the dough, their movements as rhythmic and familiar as the changing seasons. The children, little Hans and Karen, would also make appearances, their laughter echoing through the kitchen as they helped with age-appropriate tasks. Perhaps they'd help mix ingredients or shape the dough into rolls, their tiny hands mimicking their parents' movements. When the bread was ready to be pulled from the oven, the family would gather, their faces glowing in the warm light as they shared a crusty loaf still steaming from the oven. It was a moment of unity, a reminder that even in the midst of their busy lives, they had this shared tradition that bound them together. Now, you might be thinking this sounds like a quaint, simple life, and you wouldn't be wrong. But life in 18th century Denmark wasn't all cream pastries and cozy evenings by the fire. Oh, no, my friends. There were challenges aplenty. For one, flour wasn't exactly a dime a dozen in 18th century Denmark. In fact, it was pretty darn expensive. You see, flour was not only a staple of the Danish diet, but it was also in high demand across Europe. Denmark, with its limited supply of grain, couldn't keep up with the demand, leading to some pretty high prices. This meant that for many families, bread was a luxury item, something they could only afford on special occasions. For the Hansens, however, that was not the case. As a successful baker, Hans had access to a steady supply of flour, thanks to his well-established business. This gave him the luxury of baking fresh bread every day, something that many of his neighbors might only dream of. But it wasn't just about the price of flour. Baking in the 18th century was a bit of a gamble. You see, flour was bought and sold by weight, and the quality of flour varied greatly depending on when it was milled and how it was stored. A bad batch of flour could ruin a whole loaf of bread, leaving Hans with a heavy heart and a waist-high stack of sawdust. To make matters worse, flour wasn't the only ingredient that played hide-and-seek with quality. Sugar, butter and eggs could be in short supply or of dubious freshness, adding to the unpredictability of baking. Despite these challenges, Hans never lost his passion for his craft. Every morning he woke up with the sunrise, eager to create something delicious from the sometimes questionable ingredients that Mother Nature and market vendors provided. But don't think for a second that all was sweetness and light in the Hansen household. Oh, no, my friends. Like any family, the Hansens had their share of squabbles. Little Hans, you see, was a spirited lad, full of energy and mischief. He loved nothing more than racing through the halls of his family's home, his laughter echoing off the walls. But this boisterous behavior didn't always sit well with his father. Hans Hansen, the elder, had a strong belief in manners and decorum, and little Hans's rambunctiousness often put a damper on his plans for an orderly household. Picture the scene, if you will. His father standing ramrod straight in his finest clothes, preparing to receive some important guests. Suddenly, the front door bursts open and in comes little Hans, covered in flour from head to toe, a mischievous grin on his face. "I was just helping in the bakery, father," he says innocently, leaving Hans the elder sputtering in frustration. And then there was the time when Kjell, the youngest Hansen, decided that the family's prized pastry recipe needed a little, shall we say, innovation. While her brother was out playing, she snuck into the kitchen and added an extra helping of salt to the sugar bowl. The result, a batch of cookies that were so salty they could have been used as a gargle. Now, despite these little domestic dramas, life at the Hansens was filled with moments of joy and laughter. After all, They were a family who found happiness in the simple things: a freshly baked loaf of bread, the sound of their children's laughter, and the warmth of their cozy home. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the kitchen floor, the scent of baking bread filled the air. It was Hans's favorite part of the day, the moment when he could put aside his worries and focus on the simple pleasure of creating something delicious. He would knead the dough, his strong arms working the flour and water into a smooth, elastic ball. As he worked, he would hum a little tune, a melody that spoke of simpler times and happier memories. The rhythm of his work was a calming presence in an otherwise chaotic world. It was a reminder that some things in life were constant, dependable, and as comforting as the smell of fresh bread. With the dough ready, Hans would begin to shape the loaves, his hands moving with the practiced ease of a master baker. Each loaf was a testament to his skill, a beautiful example of his craft. Once the loaves were shaped, it was time to put them into the oven. As he slid the loaves into the oven, Hans couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. He loved every minute of this process, from the initial mixing of the dough to the final placement in the oven. It was more than just a chore or a job. It was an art form. And he, Hans Hansen, was a master of his craft. And so the day wore on, filled with the simple pleasures of life, the taste of freshly brewed coffee, the sound of laughter, and the warmth of family. As the evening drew in, the Hansens would gather round their table, sharing stories and jokes over a simple meal of bread, cheese, and fruit. It was a far cry from the feasts of the nobility, but for Hans and his family, it was more than they could have ever asked for. For in the end, it wasn't the grandeur of their surroundings or the richness of their food that made the Hansens happy. It was the love they shared, the laughter they enjoyed, and the comfort of their cozy home that truly made life worth living. And with that, my friends, we come to the end of our journey into the cozy world of Hans Hansen and his family. We've shared in their joys and their struggles, their triumphs and their failures, all through the simple lens of their daily lives. If you've enjoyed this glimpse into the past, know that we've got more historical tales waiting around the corner. So stay tuned for more adventures through time. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep filling your life with the simple joys that make it so wonderfully human. When you think of 18th century furniture, you might imagine imposing Chippendale chairs with cabriole legs or stately Queen Anne desks. But here in the museum's collection, we have something much more intimate, a glimpse into a cozy room in an 18th century Danish house. Today, we are surrounded by furniture that embraced you. And I mean that quite literally. The curves are everywhere, from the undulating chair backs to the rounded corners on tables and desks. Even the bed is clad in a gentle swell. This was all done on purpose to make you feel welcome. These pieces were made to invite you in, to curl up and be comfortable. This is not your typical 18th century furniture. So let's dive in and find out why. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this house. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an exciting episode. We begin our story with a desk, or rather two desks joined together, creating one long writing surface. The idea was that you would sit at either end and write letters home about your travels while perched upon a stool. The gentle curve of the front edge makes it clear that this desk is not meant to be sat at stiffly. Instead, you should lean forward onto your forearms as if resting on pillows. The wood has darkened over time, adding warmth to the piece and inviting you to settle in. But it's when you walk round to the side that you realize there are no legs. This desk is entirely composed of a single slab of wood. A carpenter likely found a fallen tree, prized the quality of the wood, but didn't want to waste a single inch. by leaving the bark on one side and the silky smooth heartwood exposed on the other. He was able to maximize its use while still adding visual interest. This desk is practical, yet utterly comfortable. It makes us wonder who might have used it. Perhaps it belonged to a well-to-do merchant like Hermit Besser, who, according to his 1780 to inventory, had a desk just like this one in his bedroom. Besser was a successful businessman who traveled often to distant lands, bringing back exotic objects that would become the envy of Copenhagen society. Imagine writing letters describing your far-flung travels before returning home to relax on a chair like this. The gentle rocking motion combined with the high, well-padded arms creates the ultimate place to unwind. The seat, however, tells another story. Unlike the desk, which embraces the natural beauty of the wood grain, this chair is completely covered in fabric, even over the arms. This was done for comfort, but also to hide any imperfections in the wood underneath. In fact, the entire room could be recovered in a new fabric at minimal cost, making it easy to update the look as fashion change. Each of these chairs features a different fabric, demonstrating how a wealthy family might change up their look every few years. Despite the frills and fancy upholstery, what makes this chair truly special is its welcoming embrace. When you sit down, the wide arms envelop your body, providing support and comfort. It's like being wrapped in a warm hug. Speaking of hugs, this is the chair for you. With its wide, inviting arms and high back, you can practically melt into it. But there's more to this chair than meets the eye. Take a closer look at the splat back. Do you see anything familiar? If you guessed that it resembled a woman's hoop skirt, you'd be right on the money. This chair was made during the Rococo period, a style movement that took Europe by storm in the 18th century. Unlike the previous chair, which was made with function in mind, this one is all about the show. The exaggerated curves and playful design are meant to delight and impress. But it wasn't just the upper classes who enjoyed these fancy chairs. As Denmark's wealth grew in the 18th century, so did the incomes of its working class. By the 1760s, many urban families could afford to furnish their homes with beautiful chairs like this one. They were no longer a luxury reserved for the elite. Now, have a seat and let's chat. What do you notice about this chair? Is it the way the back looks like it has been woven from reeds, or the delicate floral patterns on the arms? How about the seat cushion, complete with a ruffle like a woman's undergarment peeking out from underneath? Every detail tells a story, and when you put them all together, you get a glimpse into the life of a wealthy merchant's daughter. Imagine sitting in this very chair as she chats with her friends about the latest fashions, the best parties, and her hopes for the future. This table seems out of place amongst the chairs, don't you think? It's sturdy. Straight legs and lack of curves don't exactly scream comfort. But appearances can be deceiving. Just wait until you see how this bedroom comes together. The key to understanding this table lies in its simple construction. Each leg is shaped like an elongated oval, seamlessly connecting to the apron below. This technique was popular in the mid-18th century and is known as a dovetail joint. Not only is it strong, but it's also pleasing to the eye with its interlocking tails. However, the most interesting part of this table is its top. Made from a single slab of wood, it was once part of a much larger tree. Look closely and you can still see the center of the trunk where the branches would have grown. But now it serves as a place to hold your favorite novel or perhaps a cup of tea. While this table may not have any curves, it fits perfectly in this room. Speaking of perfect, this bed is like a cloud. I'm not kidding. It is actually called the cloud bed and was purchased in 2021. Before we talk about its unique construction, though, I want to know what you think. Do you prefer a soft and squishy bed or a firm mattress? Let me know in the comments below. This bed dates back to the mid-18th century, a time when sleep was becoming more associated with leisure and luxury. Instead of simply a necessity, the cloud bed epitomizes this shift. Have a closer look. What do you notice? One of the most striking features is the headboard. Unlike the straight and angular headboards of earlier periods, this one is shaped like a broken wave, gently curving towards the sides. This design element not only adds visual interest, but also serves a functional purpose. The indentation on each side allows space for the heavy curtains, ensuring they hang neatly without interfering with the mattress. But the true magic of the cloud bed lies in its mattress. Unlike today's modern mattresses, which come in a box, this one was built on site. The frame is composed of layers of straw, feathers and horsehair, all held together by a tight ticking. This created a soft, yielding surface that cradled the sleeper. To enhance the cloud effect, layers of wool batting were added on top of the mattress, giving it a luxurious, almost weightless feel. The combination of the curved headboard and the cloud mattress made this bed a truly special place to sleep. Imagine drifting off to dreamland on a bed that feels like being on a cloud. Throughout this room, we've seen a variety of woods, from the dark and rich mahogany to the lighter pine and oak. But what about the colorful palette found on this commode? This piece is made from a relatively unknown wood called painted wood. Just kidding. This was a common practice in the 18th century to hide low-quality wood with paint. But it wasn't just about concealing imperfections. In fact, decorating the surfaces of furniture with paint and gilding became a highly sophisticated art form. This commode is a prime example. The intricate hand-painted scenes depict romanticized views of nature, further enhanced by the addition of gold leaf. The result is a stunning piece that looks like it was made for royalty. This commode was likely made in Copenhagen by one of the many workshops producing furniture for the elite. Because of its size and grand scale, it may have belonged to an important government official or member of the clergy. The commode's painted surface may have started out as plain, but with some creativity, it transformed into a work of art. This treatment was popular in the mid-18th century, allowing furniture to become an integral part of the decorative scheme. As we conclude our cozy journey through 18th century Danish domestic life, I hope you felt the warmth and hospitality that this era had to offer. From the gentle curves of the chairs to the cloud-like comfort of the bed and the artistic flair of the commode, each piece tells a story of a time when comfort and elegance went hand in hand. Remember the small details that made these rooms come alive. The textiles, the personal touches, and the inviting atmosphere. As you step out of this house and into your own, I encourage you to embrace the spirit of 18th century Denmark. Find joy in the little things. Surround yourself with objects that bring you comfort and share the warmth of your home with those around you. Until next time, let the soft curves and gentle embrace of this era inspire you to create a home that is not just a house, but a sanctuary of style and substance. Have you ever wanted to just hop into a painting? Today, we are bringing an 18th century Danish home to life through all the senses to help you do just that. You can almost feel the chill of the winter wind, smell the wood smoke curling from the chimney, hear the crackle of the fire, taste the spiced bread baking in the oven, and even see the flicker of candlelight dancing on the walls. All this while learning about everyday life in Denmark during the time period of 1720 to 1800. And best of all, it's free. Just hit that like button to support us, and let's dive in. We've made videos about the wealthy elite before, but today we are focusing on the lives of ordinary people. What would life have been like for commoners in Denmark during this time period? As we learn more about how they lived, worked, eat and played, we gain a greater appreciation for what it really means to be human, no matter where or when we live. Ready? Let's go back in time. It's the end of October in 1750 and the wind is beginning to turn cold in rural Denmark. Anna feels the crisp air on her cheeks as she walks to the market square. She tucks her chin further into her woolen shawl and pulls her leather gloves more tightly round her hands. Though only 14 years old, Anna is already known throughout the village for her quick wit and clever ways. The daughter of a miller, she has grown up strong from working in her father's mill and is sought after by all the local farmers to help with their full harvest. Anna takes a shortcut through the tall grass and hops over a low stone wall. When she arrives at the market square, she sees all the other villagers gathered round stalls piled high with full crops. Baskets overflow with root vegetables, cabbage, apples, and freshly picked flowers. Excited to help her mother prepare for the coming winter, Anna fills her basket and then runs to catch the midday market bustle. Back at home, Anna's mother, Karen, is hanging up dried herbs to infuse their home with their scent and medicinal properties. Lavender, thyme, and rosemary will keep the family healthy through the winter months, and the pungent smell of rue is said to ward off evil spirits. Once the herbs are in place, Karen turns to the day's bounty. She washes the root vegetables and apples, then begins to chop them into small pieces to be dried or ground into flour. Every scrap of produce will be used, and nothing is wasted. Even the apple cores and rinds will be saved to make cider. As Karen works, she hums a tune, keeping time with the rhythmic chop of her knife. It is a busy time in the kitchen, but Karen enjoys these long hours. Working together as a family is a source of pride for her, and she knows that their efforts now will ensure their survival through the coming months. In a few weeks, her husband, Jens, will bring home the grain from the summer's harvest to grind into flour. They will have the makings of a full pantry for the winter. But still, there is much work to be done. It's getting late, so Karen decides to put the remaining produce into the root cellar, a cool, dark place beneath the house where temperatures stay steady throughout the year. They will be able to retrieve the vegetables throughout the winter to add flavor and nutrition to their meals. Karen takes out the old, well-seasoned root cellar ladder, carefully making her way down. At the bottom, she finds plenty of food left over from last year's harvest. Swede, carrots, potatoes, and onions stored here have lasted perfectly, providing a welcome supply of vitamins. She adds her fresh vegetables to the mix, then climbs back up to the kitchen to get dinner started. While Karen prepares dinner, Anna helps set the table for her father and 3 younger siblings. A simple meal of rye bread and cheese is on the menu, and Anna's little brother Lars eagerly pushes his chair out for his favorite part of the meal, the storytelling. After dinner, the family gathers round the hearth as the flames crackle and pop in the old brick fireplace. They share news from the week and reminisce about warmer days. Jens tells stories of his youth while Anna listens intently, hanging on his every word. Her father's tales always make her feel connected to something larger than herself. Plus, her father's stories often include daring adventures and valiant heroes, which make her feel safe and secure. As the evening deepens, the family huddles closer to the fire. Now that the nights are growing longer and darker, daylight hours seem precious. Soon it will be too dark to do much of anything but stay inside by the fire and read or tell stories. Karen pulls her woolen blanket tightly round her shoulders as she watches the flickering flames dance on the wall. One day soon, they will need to start gathering wood for the coming winter. But for now, they are comfortable and well fed. The sun sinks lower in the sky, signaling bedtime. The family heads to bed, each slipping under their woolen blankets for warmth and comfort. They sleep soundly, dreaming of summer days and warm hearts, with the knowledge that they are ready for whatever the coming winter may bring. When the temperatures drop below freezing, the family starts spending more time indoors. Sitting round the hearth becomes their favorite pastime. Not only does the fire provide much-needed warmth, but it also offers a comforting glow in the otherwise dark rooms. Speaking of light, candles are lit early in the evening and placed in windows to provide some illumination during the dark winter months. This practice not only helps the family see in the dark, but also makes their home more visible to passers-by. Candles are expensive and made from tallow, a rendered animal fat, so they are often saved for important occasions. As the temperature drops, Anna and her family begin to wear more layers of clothing. Layering allows them to adjust to the changing temperatures throughout the day and provides extra warmth without the bulk of a heavy coat. Anna's family makes sure to cover her head and extremities, like her fingers and toes, because those areas are particularly susceptible to the cold. The family tends to wear sturdy, durable clothing that can withstand the rigors of daily life. Anna's clothes are often patched and mended, a testament to the hard work that she and her family do. Anna and her family eat hearty meals to keep their bodies fueled and warmed up. Hearty soups and stews are a staple of their diet, and they often eat with their hands. Eating with one's hands was common in this time period and across social classes, and it's a great way to enjoy a meal without the need for utensils. In the evenings, Anna and her family find entertainment in games and activities that don't require much light or noise. Board games and card games are popular, as are quiet activities like knitting and sewing. Storytelling is also a popular way to pass the time, and family members often share stories from their childhood or reminisce about past events. Before going to bed, Anna and her family make sure to tuck in tightly under their woolen blankets. Staying warm at night is essential in cold weather, and they often sleep in the clothes they wore during the day to keep their body heated. And there you have it, a glimpse into the cozy world of 18th century Denmark. From the simple joys of a hearty meal to the comfort of a crackling fire, life in this time period may have been challenging, but it was also filled with warmth, community, and the simple pleasures of everyday life. Now it's time to hear from you. What did you think of this sensory journey? Which aspect of daily life in 18th century Denmark did you find most interesting? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. We love hearing from you, and your feedback helps us make our videos better for everyone. And if you're looking for more immersive history experiences, be sure to check out our other videos. There's something for everyone. Thanks for joining us on this journey through time. Stay warm and cozy out there, and we'll see you next time. The air is alive with the gentle clatter of knitting needles and the murmur of conversation as women gather in the warm glow of candlelight. Their hands moving in a practiced rhythm that has been passed down through generations. Each stitch is not just a step in creating a cozy textile, but a silent story, a whisper from the past echoing into the present. Welcome to our series, a cozy journey through 18th century Danish domestic life. Join us as we unravel the layers of everyday life during the 18th century, exploring the routines, traditions, and crafts that once filled a typical Danish household. Today, we'll be focusing on the world of textiles, where every thread tells a tale of culture, community, and quiet resilience. Imagine a room bathed in the soft glow of candlelight, the air thick with the comforting scent of beeswax and wood smoke. In the center, a table laden with balls of yarn, spools of thread and bolts of fabric, each with its own tale to tell. The women seated round it are not merely passing time. They are crafting connections. Their hands, guided by years of experience, dance over the textiles, creating patterns that will adorn the homes and bodies of their loved ones. In the heart of Denmark during the 18th century, the domestic sphere was a hub of activity. And at the center of this activity were the women, whose roles extended far beyond the traditional confines of domesticity. While men engaged in trade or managed the household's finances, women were the architects of the home's comfort, and their handiwork was a testament to this role. From the finest linens to woolen garments, their creations were not just products. They were expressions of love, status, and identity. Embroidery, one of the most popular textile arts, was more than a pastime for Danish women. It was a cultural cornerstone. Intricate needlework adorned everything from tablecloths to clothing, each stitch narrating a story of the maker. These designs, often passed down through familial networks, were not merely decorative. They were a reflection of the wearer's social standing and personal taste. For instance, the choice of colors would often signify important events in a woman's life. Soft pastels might have been favored by young girls, while bolder hues were reserved for married women. The motifs themselves also held significance. Floral patterns symbolized nature's bounty and were popular among the upper classes, while geometric designs were favored by those with more modest means. But it wasn't just about the end product. The process of embroidery brought women together. In a society where public gatherings were limited, embroidery circles became social hubs. The rhythmic clatter of needles became the soundtrack of female bonding, with gossip and news sharing taking center stage alongside the textiles. But as the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the room, the pace of stitching would quicken. The daylight hours were precious, and there was much to accomplish before the soft glow of candlelight replaced the sun. As twilight deepened, the room took on a magical quality. The flickering flames danced in the women's eyes, their faces illuminated in shades of orange and purple. The air grew heavy with the scent of beeswax as the candles burned, casting dancing shadows on the walls. In this intimate setting, stories were shared, secrets were kept, and the bonds of friendship were strengthened. The quiet click of the knitting needles became a lullaby, a soothing melody that accompanied the fading light. It was a time for quiet contemplation, for thoughts to drift as easily as the needles flew. Knitting, another staple of Danish textile arts, was a solitary pursuit that offered women a unique space for self-expression and quiet creativity. Unlike embroidery, which was often done in groups, knitting allowed for a more introspective practice. As women were upon, their fingers flying deftly over the needles, they could lose themselves in the rhythm of the craft. This rhythmic repetition became a form of meditation, a way to navigate the complexities of daily life. With each stitch, they wove their thoughts and emotions into the fabric, creating not just a tactile masterpiece, but an emotional one. The choice of yarn, color, and pattern became a silent language, communicating the knitter's mood and intentions to the world. A bold, colorful piece might signify happiness and celebration, while a more muted tone could reflect a somber mood or a moment of introspection. And as the knitter worked, her surroundings would fade away. She was in a world of her own, a world where the only sounds were the gentle clink of needles and the soft murmur of yarn as it formed into shape. It was a world of solitude, but not of loneliness. For in the solitude, there was a sense of peace, a quiet joy that came from the creative process and the tangible result that would emerge at its end. As the fire crackled in the hearth, Casting flickering shadows on the walls, the women's hands moved with a practiced grace. The tools of their trade lay around them, each bearing silent witness to countless hours of labor. Spindles and distaffs, those simple yet essential implements of textile production, sat beside well-worn chairs. On these mundane objects held extraordinary significance. The spindle, with its slender shaft and whirl, was more than just a tool. It was an extension of the maker's hand, a conduit for transforming raw materials into intricate threads. Each twist of the whirl, each pull of the string, was a testament to generations of women who had wielded this same tool, creating a tangible link between past and present. The distaff, a simple wooden stick, was equally vital. It served as a miniature loom, holding the flax or wool in place as the spindle worked, allowing the process of spinning to take place. Together, the spindle and distaff represented not just a craft, but a legacy of resourcefulness, creativity, and quiet strength. In the tapestry of 18th century Danish domestic life, the humble tea cozy holds a surprisingly prominent thread. More than just a simple kitchen accessory, the tea cozy was a symbol of warmth, comfort, and community. Imagine a quaint kitchen, its walls adorned with hand-painted murals depicting idyllic landscapes or scenes from everyday life. In the center, resting on a well-worn table, is a teapot, its porcelain belly promising a comforting brew within. And draped over it, not to keep the tea warm, but as a final touch of elegance, is a tea cozy. This isn't just a functional item. It's a handcrafted piece of art, often made from the same fine linen or embroidered cotton that adorns the rest of the home. Delicate floral patterns or simple geometric designs grace its exterior, making each cozy a unique piece. The act of putting the kettle on wasn't just a chore. It was a ritual, a signal for the family to come together. And the tea cozy, with its soft hues and intricate details, was a silent participant in this ritual. It whispered tales of past gatherings, of laughter and conversation shared round the very table it adorned. Each stitch, each carefully chosen color, was a testament to the love and care that went into every aspect of the domestic sphere. In a world where women's roles were often undervalued, the creation of such simple yet elegant items was their quiet form of self-expression, a way to infuse their surroundings with beauty and meaning. And so, as the steam curled from the spout of the teapot, carrying with it the promise of warmth and solace, the women of 18th century Denmark looked forward to a cozy evening, the flickering candlelight danced in their eyes, reflecting the glow of their handiwork and the contentment that came from a day well spent in the service of their homes and families. We hope you enjoyed this cozy journey through 18th century Danish domestic life. If you want to learn more about life in the 18th century, stay tuned for more videos. Until then, keep creating your own cozy moments and never stop exploring the stories that surround you. In the heart of Europe, nestled between the Baltic Sea and the North Sea lies Denmark, a land that has always been known for its design aesthetics. But did you know that Denmark has also excelled in the art of creating an atmosphere? Long before Hygge was a buzzword, Danes have understood the power of ambience, the magic of making a house a home. Welcome to This House Through Time, where we take you on a journey back in time to experience life in the 18th century. Today, we are transported to a modest yet inviting abode that whispers tales of a bygone era. Here within these four walls, we will unravel the threads of daily existence during the 18th century in Denmark. Our goal is to paint a vivid picture of what it might have sounded like to live in this time and place, to evoke the essence of a day in the life of a family living here. The year is 1740, and the sun as it rises over the horizon bathes the quaint Danish town in its golden light. Our story begins in a modest yet cozy home where a family is just waking up to the gentle strains of a violin. Ah, yes, it's Thomas, the eldest son, practicing his scales in preparation for his upcoming lesson with Master Olsen, the renowned music teacher from the next town over. His sister, Marianne, stirs in her sleep, her dreams filled with visions of dancing swans and enchanted forests. Their parents, Jens and Bodil, awaken in their shared bed, their love for each other as steadfast as the oak beams supporting their roof. Jens, a carpenter by trade, is known throughout the community for his exquisite craftsmanship, while Bodil, with her quick wit and warm smile, is the heart and soul of their home. After a quiet moment of contemplation, they rise, their bodies stiff from a night's rest, and begin the daily ritual of preparing for the day ahead. Bodil, ever mindful of the needs of her family, starts the fire in the hearth, coaxing the flames to life with a practiced flick of her wrist. She knows that soon the aroma of burning logs will mingle with the scent of fresh bread, creating a welcoming tapestry of fragrance that will permeate every corner of their humble abode. Meanwhile, she hums a cheerful tune as she goes about her morning chores, her voice blending seamlessly with the melody played by Thomas at his makeshift desk. He pauses his practice to beam at his mother, his heart swelling with love and admiration for the woman who had taught him the first notes he ever learned. In return, Bodil offers a gentle smile, her eyes crinkling at the corners, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they share. As the family awakens, the sounds of breakfast being prepared fill the air. The rhythmic clatter of plates, the gentle clink of spoons, and the murmur of conversation create a soothing symphony of domesticity. Outside, the wind whispers secrets through the leaves, mingling with the distant laughter of children at play. And as the family gathers round the table, the sounds of their day blend harmoniously with the backdrop of nature's orchestra. The morning meal consists of simple fare, bread, cheese, and porridge, each bite a testament to Bodil's culinary skills. Over their meal, Jens and Bodil discuss plans for the day ahead, their voices weaving in and out of the lively banter between Thomas and Marianne. Soon it's time for Thomas to leave for his music lesson. With a kiss from his mother and a firm handshake from his father, he sets off down the cobblestone streets, his violin tucked under his arm, eager to learn from his esteemed teacher. Marianne, with her boundless energy, wants to accompany her brother, but Bodil gently persuades her to stay home, promising a special surprise later in the day. As the morning progresses, Bodil finds herself alone in the quiet of the house. The silence is comforting, allowing her to lose herself in the tasks at hand, be it mending clothes or tending to the herbs growing by the windowsill. She moves with a grace born from years of practice, each action a testament to her resourcefulness and quiet strength. But the tranquility is not to last. There's a knock at the door, and when Bodil opens it, she is met with the smiling face of Astrid, her closest friend and confidant. The two women embrace warmly, their laughter echoing in the now bustling kitchen as they catch up on each other's lives. Soon, the simple pleasures of afternoon tea take center stage. The delicate clinking of cups and saucers fills the air as Bodil and Astrid indulge in sweet treats baked by Bodil herself. They talk freely, sharing stories, laughter, and the occasional secret, their voices a soothing melody in the cozy confines of the home. As the daylight begins to fade, casting long shadows across the room, Astrid prepares to leave. She and Bodil stand at the door, their silhouettes outlined against the soft glow of the setting sun. With promises of another visit soon, Astrid departs, leaving Bodil to the quiet contemplation of the evening. Now it's time to prepare for dinner, and Bodil, with the help of young Marianne, sets the table with a simple white cloth, placing a woodman bowl and a pewter plate for each family member. The centerpiece is a loaf of freshly baked bread, its golden-hued crust promising warmth and nourishment. As the family gathers once again around the table, there's a palpable sense of unity, their daily lives intersecting at this point, creating a tapestry of love and routine. The evening meal is a bit more substantial than breakfast, perhaps some fish from the day's catch, accompanied by vegetables from their small garden and a thick slice of bread. The silence during the meal is not awkward, but comfortable, allowing each family member to savor the taste of their food and the company of those they love. After dinner, as the fire crackles merrily in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the walls, Marianne pipes up. She wants to hear a story, and so Bottle, with a loving smile, obliges. She begins to spin a tale, her voice taking on different inflections to match the characters she describes. Perhaps it's a story of daring adventure, or maybe a whimsical fairy tale. But either way, the children are enthralled, their imagination soaring on the wings of their mother's storytelling. When the flames die down and the shadows grow longer, it's time for bed. Bottle helps Marianne get ready for a sleep, tucking her into bed and kissing her forehead. The little girl's eyelids grow heavy, and soon she drifts off to dreamland, her breathing becoming soft and even. Thomas, now a young man, doesn't need his mother's help, but he often lingers a bit longer in the doorway, talking to his mother about his day, his voice a source of comfort to Bottle. When he finally leaves, she feels a pang of loneliness, but it's quickly replaced by the quiet satisfaction of knowing her children are happy and well on their way to becoming fine, upstanding adults. Alone now in the dimly lit room, Bottle blows out the candle on the bedside table, plunging the space into darkness. She snuggles closer to Jensen, finding solace in his warmth. The two lie in silence, their lover constant in the ebb and flow of their lives, their breaths mingling in the darkness until sleep claims them, whispering promises of another beautiful day to come. And as the moonbeams paint silver streaks across the room, this humble home continues to tell its story, a testament to the beauty of simplicity, the warmth of family, and the magic of a life well lived. So, if you ever find yourself in this charming town, take a moment to wander down the cobblestone streets, to peer into the windows of an old house, and to listen closely. You might just hear the echoes of laughter, the murmur of voices, and the soft sigh of contentment. An invitation to step back in time and experience a day in the life of a family in 18th century Denmark. Okay, thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this glimpse into the past, and that it has inspired you to appreciate the beauty of everyday life. If you'd like to support our channel and help us bring these historical tales to more people, please don't hesitate to show your support. Your support helps us continue to create these educational and entertaining videos and allows us to share them with a wider audience. Together, we can keep these stories alive and ensure that they continue to inspire and educate for generations to come. Imagine yourself transported to this era where life moved at a slower pace and the simple pleasures brought the most joy. From the architecture and fashion to the daily routines and traditions, you'll get a glimpse into a world that seems both familiar and enchanting. In our previous episode, we learned how families of different social classes would have lived in the 1700s. We saw how the wealthy elite lived in large homes with many rooms for servants, while the peasants lived in small cottages with thatched roofs. No matter their social class, all families in Denmark during the 18th century valued togetherness. They would often eat their meals together and take care of each other. Today, we're going to take a closer look at how families came together without saying a word. We'll see how they communicated with each other through their actions, and how they showed their love for each other in small but meaningful ways. So let us go back in time and find out how families in 18th century Denmark showed togetherness without words. 1. Meal times were more than just a time to eat. They were a chance for families to come together and share stories about their day. This was especially true during breakfast, which was often eaten in silence. The head of the household would sit at the head of the table, and everyone else would sit facing him or her. Servants were not allowed to eat with the family, but they would often eat their meals separately in the kitchen. During the 18th century, it was common for families to eat different types of foods for breakfast. The wealthy might have eaten porridge, milk, bread and cheese, while the poor might have eaten whatever they could get their hands on. No matter what they ate, though, everyone would eat in silence. This wasn't because they didn't like to talk. It was simply a way to show respect to the head of the household. It was also a time to be thankful for the food they had been given and to remember those who were less fortunate. As the sun rose higher in the sky, it was time for the family to come together again for the midday meal. This was often a more leisurely affair than breakfast, with more conversation and laughter. The family would eat a variety of dishes, including soups, stews, and roasted meats. After the meal, the family might take a walk together or play games before it was time to come back inside for the evening meal. This was another opportunity for the family to connect with each other and talk about their day. Often the evening meal was the most important meal of the day, with the whole family coming together to enjoy a feast. The meal might include a variety of dishes, including fish, meat, and vegetables. After the meal, the family might tell stories or sing songs together before it was time to go to bed. Cleaning and chores were a part of everyday life for families in 18th century Denmark. But they weren't seen as a chore, rather as a way for the family to come together and take care of each other. For example, cleaning the house was a job that everyone in the family could help with, no matter how old they were. The children would help by dusting furniture and sweeping floors, while the adults would take care of the more difficult tasks like scrubbing walls and windows. Evenings were often spent cleaning and preparing the house for the next day. This was a time for the family to work together and make sure that everything was in order. It was also a time to relax and chat with each other after a long day of work. Music might have been played and the family might have even broken into song as they worked. It may sound strange to us today, but for families in 18th century Denmark, cleaning and chores were a way to bond with each other and make sure that their home was a place of comfort and safety. 3. Taking care of each other. In 18th century Denmark, families took care of each other in a variety of ways. For example, when someone was sick, the other members of the family would do their best to make them comfortable and help them get well soon. They would bring them food and water and help them with any chores they needed assistance with. They might also have used traditional remedies to help the sick person feel better, such as herbal teas or poultices. In addition to taking care of each other when they were sick, family members also made sure to show their love and appreciation for each other in everyday life. They would do things for each other without being asked, such as helping with chores or running errands. They would also express their love verbally and physically, such as by giving each other hugs or telling each other how much they were loved. Moreover, families in 18th century Denmark were tight-knit communities. They would often rely on their extended family and neighbors for help when they needed it. This could involve asking for help with childcare. For example, offer assistance with a particularly difficult chore. Neighbors might also drop by for an impromptu visit, and they would often bring food or other items that they had recently harvested or made. In this way, families in 18th century Denmark were able to create a strong sense of community and support. By taking care of each other and relying on each other for help, They were able to create a network of love and support that helped them through the challenges of everyday life. 4. Spending quality time together. For families in 18th century Denmark, spending quality time together meant doing activities that everyone could enjoy. For young children, this might have meant playing games or listening to stories. As the children got older, they might have participated in more adult activities such as gardening or cooking. In the evenings, families might have gathered round the hearth to share stories or sing songs. This was a great way for the family to bond and create lasting memories. Families in 18th century Denmark also made sure to set aside time for religious activities. They would often attend church services together and pray before meals. This was an important way for them to stay connected to their faith and values as a family. Finally, families in 18th century Denmark made sure to celebrate special occasions together. This could include holidays, birthdays, or other important events. They would often celebrate by holding feasts or participating in local festivals. These were important times for the family to come together and show their love and appreciation for each other. 5. Showing respect for each other. In 18th century Denmark, showing respect for each other was essential for maintaining harmony within the family. This meant using polite language, listening to elders, and being considerate of other family members' needs. Children were expected to show respect to their parents and other adults in the household. They were taught to use respectful language, to obey their elders, and to help out with chores without being asked. In turn, parents were expected to show respect for their children by listening to their concerns, setting a good example and providing them with the love and support they needed to thrive. Showing respect for each other was an important way for families in 18th century Denmark to maintain harmony and balance within the household. By following these guidelines, family members were able to create a respectful and supportive environment where everyone felt valued and appreciated. We hope you enjoyed this journey back in time to 18th century Denmark. If you did, please leave us a comment below with your thoughts on family life during this era. What surprised you the most about how families in 18th century Denmark showed togetherness without saying a word? Did you learn anything new or gain a new perspective on family relationships? We'd love to hear from you. Also, if you haven't already, we invite you to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an exciting episode. And don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the past. I have to admit, I've always wanted to live in a Regency romance novel. And one way I think I can make that dream come true is by recreating an 18th century Danish room from scratch. So join me today as we continue to build up my virtual house in Copenhagen and look at how gardens and windowsills might have softened the edges of winter in this cozy domestic space. When it comes to gardens, the Danes are definitely not messing around. And if you want to learn more about their beautiful historic gardens, I will leave a link to the incredible staff at the Danish Garden Heritage Foundation down below. But while they may have had epic gardens outside, what did they fill their windowsills with? To answer that question, we need to take a journey back in time to 1732. In this year, a bookseller named Johann Friedrich Struensee published a book called The Art of Planting and Managing a Flower and Kitchen Garden. Now, if you're anything like me, you probably don't want to spend all your money on a single book, especially when it costs $24. That's the equivalent of nearly $900 today. So instead, I went to the library and checked out a digitized copy. This is also a great resource, because often these old books have really interesting advertisements in the back. While the ads in this particular book weren't as exciting as the ones in the Gentlemaness magazine we looked at last week, there was one thing that caught my eye. Pots. It turned out that one of our favorite ways to bring the outdoors inside was also popular in the 18th century, as evidenced by this illustration on page 165. There is also mention of a glass stove on page 133. So I'm pretty sure this would be an excellent time to plug the venue. No relation to the sponsor. But if you do want to learn more about their incredible products, you can use the code history for a discount. What I find particularly delightful about these images is that even though this is meant to be a practical book about gardening, the author still managed to include beautiful drawings of blooming flowers. Speaking of delightful, if you'd like to bring a bit of delight into your own home, maybe you could put up some artwork. But what kind of artwork would someone hang on their walls? We'll explore just that next. But first, quick reminder to drop a like and subscribe if you love the whimsy and wonder of all things 18th century. While perusing the library's digitized version of Stranz's book, I came across another potential source of wall art: botanical prints. These were extremely popular in the 18th century and could be purchased individually or in sets. My favorite part is that you could even buy them already framed. How convenient. The British Library has an entire digital collection dedicated to these prints, which means I can ogle them to my heart's content without having to set foot outside. In fact, I found over 1,000 images there, including this lovely print of a flowering almond tree. What I find so fascinating, that it appears the artist drew from real life because you can actually see the painter standing right here. Look at his reflection in the water. Now the thing is, I'm not usually a fruit person, but there's something about the delicate beauty of these blossoms that makes me want to get up close and personal. Oh, and apparently I'm not alone. One advertisement in Struensee's book actually recommends keeping flowering trees in pots so that you can carry them into the house during the winter. Imagine the sweet smell of almonds wafting through your rooms. That sounds absolutely divine. And speaking of carrying things into the house, what about the garden pests that seem determined to ruin everything? Well, luckily there is a solution for that too. Once again, the pages of Struensee's book provided a most welcome distraction. Not only does he explain how to deal with pesky animals who want to snack on your prize-winning vegetables, but he also gives advice on how to protect your plants from human predators. Apparently a thief stole his neighbor's cabbages. Unbelievable. Struensee assures us that we can deter thieves with the help of cat or dog. Alive or stuffed. Cat or dog. I assume the stuffed variety would be less expensive. And I mean, who doesn't love a good taxidermy trophy? After all, it serves both as a warning to other would-be cabbage thieves and as a souvenir commemorating a life well lived. Also, we all know how expensive security systems are these days. So it seems like a win-win. So where would someone put their stuffed animal deterrents? Well, according to the book, anywhere from the windowsill to the top of the door. And since I don't have any stuffed animals, let's go with the windowsill. Now, I find it rather curious that the same sills where we might place our flowering trees or deter cabbage thieves could also hold and rear herbs. Herbs are mentioned quite frequently throughout Struensee's book, so much so that he even provides instructions for building an outdoor herb garden. For example, rosemary should be planted near the south wall of a house, and sage grows best in poor soil. Thyme is a perennial herb that produces small blossoms and must be mowed every 2 weeks. Apparently, dill grows wild in many places and is excellent for pickling. And oregano is not only great for flavoring your food, but is also lovely to grow near your pathway as its scent helps to repel flies. But wait, there's more. We haven't even talked about mint yet, which is described as a most excellent and wholesome herb that must be planted by itself because it grows so rankly. See what I did there? Anyway, where would one put such a rankly growing herb? According to Strunsky, in a pot near your windowsill. Just make sure you keep it isolated from other plants. And what would someone do with all these freshly picked herbs? Well, according to the 1742 edition of the Art of Cookery made plain and easy by Hannah-Glass, they would use them to flavor all kinds of dishes, from simple boiled chicken to roast goose. In fact, she recommends putting mint sauce on everything. Although I think I'll stick to using it on my lamb. Oh, and apparently leftover sauces can be boiled down and stored for a future use, which is handy when you're feeling lazy. But what if you don't have time to cook anything at all? Well, no worries. Hannah has you covered with a recipe for a simple lettuce, a dish that takes no time to make and requires zero cooking skills. All you have to do is chop up some lettuce, put it in a bowl, add some chopped parsley, then pour the vinegar and old dressing on top and finish with a bit of salt and pepper. Simple enough for even a child to make. Now, this brings me to another potential decoration for our windowsills, children. As you may or may not know, depending on how many videos you've watched, I am expecting my first baby in March. So maybe I'll be adding a child to my windowsill in the not-so-distant future. Just kidding. But seriously, I will probably be making some significant changes to my room once the baby arrives. Speaking of significant changes. But now it's time for our favorite part of the show. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, remember, the best is yet to be. I've just finished reading this book about domestic life in Denmark in the 18th century, and I feel like it has a really good palate cleanser after all that horror from the last episode. So today, let's have tea and crumpets and talk about what we learned from this very cozy history book. I want to start with a passage that was written in 1769 by one of the characters in our story. The king's mistress and later wife, Count Frederick Larning. She is describing her childhood home. We see the glow of the candlelight dance upon the walls, casting long shadows from the heavy curtains. The table stands ready with a freshly laundered tablecloth and an array of delectable treats, including the honey cakes my mother baked herself. On the hearth, a kettle hangs over the fire, its copper gleaming like a polished mirror. And there's even a cat basking in the warm glow. This is such a classic Hygge scene, isn't it? You can almost feel the warmth and smell the delicious aromas filling the room. The author describes the interiors of this house with great detail and tells us that they were decorated with wallpaper and furnished with the latest fashions from France. Sounds fancy, right? But there's another detail that she mentions. All of the furniture is placed in such a way that you can easily have a conversation with anyone in the room. This detail seems out of place because it clashes with the idea of a fancy French interior. But it points to the importance of community and togetherness in Danish culture. And that will be a recurring theme in this video. There are many ways to define Hygge, but at its core it's about finding comfort and joy in the simple things in life. Spending time with loved ones, enjoying a nice meal or drink, or just relaxing in a cozy space. It is a feeling of contentment and satisfaction that comes from embracing the present moment and appreciating the beauty of everyday life. It's a philosophy that has deep roots in Danish culture. And we're going to explore those roots today by taking a journey back to the 18th century Denmark. This historical period, known as the Age of Enlightenment, was a time of great intellectual ferment across Europe, and Denmark was no exception. The ideas of reason, Individualism and humanism were widely embraced, and this had a profound impact on Danish society. One notable figure in this movement was the Danish philosopher and theologian Thomas Kingo, who wrote a book called The Danish Art of Happiness. In it, he argued that happiness was not something that could be found in material possessions or external circumstances, but rather something that could only be found within oneself through introspection, self-reflection, and a commitment to living a virtuous life. His ideas had a lasting impact on Danish culture and helped to shape the country's reputation for being one of the happiest in the world. But while the Enlightenment emphasized the power of reason, it also acknowledged the importance of emotion and intuition. This is a sentiment that we see reflected in the writings of another Danish thinker, the philosopher and theologian Nikolai Frederik Severin Grundtvig. He believed that true happiness could only be achieved when the rational and the intuitive aspects of human nature were in harmony. He argued that the Danes had a natural affinity for the intuitive, and that this was what gave rise to their unique cultural traits, including their love of nature, their sense of community, and their ability to find joy in the simple things in life. And those are the traits that we're going to see reflected in the pages of this history book. Let's meet some of the people that populate those pages. First, there's Frederick V, who became king in 1746. He was the son of Christian VI and his mistress, one Albrechtine, whom the king married after he ascended to the throne. The couple had 2 sons, but the marriage was childless, which meant that Frederick's younger brother Christian was next in line to inherit the throne. Frederick was not particularly interested in having more children, so he kept himself mostly unfaithful to his wife, Julie and Marie, but he did have a weakness for beautiful women. He had several official mistresses before he met his most famous mistress, the woman who would become his second wife, Countess Frederick Lunning. Frederick first set eyes on Frederica when he attended a party dressed as a hairy wild man from Borneo. Frederica, meanwhile, was dressed as a flower. Can you imagine? Frederick, already enamored by her beauty, asked if he could pick the flower, to which the Countess replied that he could do so only if he made her laugh. And he succeeded in doing so, and they began a relationship that would last for 12 years. In 1751, Frederica became pregnant with Frederick's child and went to live at a palace where she gave birth to a baby boy. The king visited her there regularly. The following year, Frederick's wife, Julie Anna Maria, died unexpectedly, and he wasted no time in making Frederica his official mistress and moving her into the palace. 2 years later, he also had the couple's little cottage, lovingly referred to as the hovel, built for them on the palace grounds, where Frederica would reside when she wasn't staying with the king. Frederick then began planning to marry Frederica, but there was a problem. At the time, the Danish constitution forbade the king from marrying a subject, so Frederick changed the constitution to suit his needs and married Frederica in secret in 1766. Also living at the palace were Frederick's brother Prince Christian, who was next in line to the throne along with his wife Princess Sophie and their 5 young children, as well as the prince and princess's parents, Frederick's sister and her husband. And it was here in this household that we see the essence of Hygge on display. As we read about the daily lives of the royals, we see them engaging in activities that we associate with Hygge, such as enjoying simple pleasures like a good meal or drink, telling stories and jokes round the dinner table, and spending time with friends and family. For example, there is this lovely scene where we see the king hosting a dinner party for his close friends and family. The guests are enjoying a meal of roast goose and other delicacies while they engage in lively conversation and laughter. The king's young son is also present at the gathering, and we see him displaying the characteristic Danish trait of being unafraid of children. He runs round the table during the party without disturbing the guests. And the king's older son is described as having a hearty laugh that echoes throughout the hall. These scenes are filled with a sense of warmth and camaraderie, and they give us a glimpse into the close-knit community that the Danish royals enjoyed. But Hygge is more than just a set of activities. It's also a way of thinking and being. The Danish royals we meet in this story are portrayed as humble and down-to-earth people who take pleasure in the simple things in life. They're not immune to the problems and challenges that everyone faces, and they deal with them in a practical and stoic manner. For instance, there is a scene where the king's young son becomes ill and the whole family is deeply affected by it. The princess stays by her son's bedside day and night, and the king is so worried that he can't sleep. Despite the gravity of the situation, there's still a sense of calm and control. The family doesn't panic or become overwhelmed by their son's illness. Instead, they face it together and support each other through it. When the boy eventually recovers, there's a sense of relief and gratitude that fills the household. Another example of the Danish royal stoic nature is seen in their response to the death of a beloved pet. The king's dog dies, and we're told that while he was deeply saddened by the loss, he didn't allow himself to be consumed by grief. He understood that death was a natural part of life, and that it was important to move forward and honor the dog's memory by living a good and fulfilling life. These are just a few examples of the ways in which the Danish royals in this story embody the spirit of Hygge. They are humble, down-to-earth family who takes pleasure in the simple things in life and faces challenges with a sense of calm and control. But what does all this have to do with Hygge? Well, as I see it, the true spirit of Hygge lies not in any particular activity or object, but in the mindset and approach to life that the Danish royals embody. They understood that happiness and well-being come from within, and that it is important to cultivate a sense of contentment and satisfaction in the present moment. They also knew that life is full of ups and downs, and that it is important to face challenges with a sense of calm and control. In short, they understood the true meaning of Hygge. Today, Hygge is a word that's used to describe a wide range of things, from a cozy sweater to a candlelit dinner. But at its core, it's a philosophy of finding contentment and satisfaction in the simple things in life. The Danish royals in this story understood this philosophy better than anyone else, and we can learn from their example by embracing the present moment, appreciating the beauty of everyday life and facing challenges with a sense of calm and control. So next time you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, take a moment to pause and reflect on the Danish art of Hygge. Embrace the little things in life and find joy in the present moment. You may just find that happiness is closer than you think. That's all for this episode. Thank you so much for joining me on this cozy journey through 18th century Denmark. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more. And if you'd like to continue exploring the world of Hygge, I'll leave some suggestions in the description below. Until next time, happy Hygge weekend.